When Commissioner Jameson comes back in, I'll start. I'll let him get his food. Here he comes. Yay. Okay. I am going to go ahead and start this January 10th, 5 o'clock workshop of the Community Redevelopment Agency. And I'll turn it over to Christina at this point because she has set this up.
Well, we'd like to welcome everybody this evening, especially Steve Lowitz we have here from Arbor Development. Steve is going to be going over the federal tax credit process. We're very fortunate right now to have a number of entities very interested in our community. We have a great need for workforce and affordable housing. And so hopefully this evening we have Corey Harris from NHDC, and we have the Alachua County Housing Authority here as well, and we have a real estate community. So hopefully everybody, after we get an introduction from Steve and he kind of talks about that tax credit process, maybe we kind of get into a question and answer or discussion. So with that, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Steve.
There's nothing before the workshop. We do it later.
Okay, I always start for the record. I'm Steve Lowitz, Lowitz. My company is called, actually now we call it Arbor, ARBOUR, Valley, and now we have a series of companies. It's Arbor Valley Companies. Specifically, Arbor Valley Development of those companies would be addressing you tonight. Arbor Valley is a company that I formed with a couple of other partners. It's been a while. Maybe 20 years now, 18 years. And we all have our expertise very deep in the world of U.S. housing and HUD. I'll keep it short. Do a lot of work in the world of HUD, and we have built at Arbor Valley to collectively about 5,000 units, the hard way, one at a time. The closest developments to High Springs would be Arbors at Williston, just down the road in Levy County. We did that about 8 or 10 years ago. It's a family garden apartment community across from the elementary school on South Main, if you all know Williston. We just very recently completed, in fact, got a CO the beginning in January, Arbors at Tumbling Creek, which is a seniors. We have many of our residents are veterans, which I'm very proud about. Several of them were homeless before we were able to get them housing, which I'm very, very proud about. And Arbors at Williston and Arbors at Tumbling Creek would be two communities if you wanted to drive by or even go in and say hi. I'm from the city of High Springs, and we're very family oriented in our operation and our company, and I hope you'll meet nice people if you should do so. When you do any development, you have to say, okay, how am I going to get it funded? Even buying a house, where am I going to get the funds? So when you're doing low income, and we'll call it low moderate income housing that is serving a population anywhere from 30% to say 60% of the area median income. And HUD provides a program and actually a chart that shows for qualifying under those income levels, if you're renting, what the rent is that you can afford to pay. If you're buying a home, basically what you can afford for your income. If you're renting, what your rent levels need to be at to be at 30% of your earned income. So to keep it simple, if you're making $100 a week, you could afford to pay, without taking deductions off of that, $33 a week in a rent and still be able to feed your family under the concept of how HUD thinks this out. Okay. There is something called an IRS Section 42. It actually is known as a low-income housing tax credit. They are now cleaning that up a little bit and calling it a housing tax credit. And the purpose of the tax credit is it's provided to banks, it's provided to other corporate industry, that if they have $1 in tax that they owe and they have this tax credit of $1, basically they don't pay any tax. So it's a tax credit off the tax, not a deduction before tax that you would typically know about. If you're out there and you got a business and you got a truck, you can have a deduction for travel, for your working expense. This is off the actual tax. So partners that we work with are Wells Fargo, invested with us on Arbors at Tumbling Creek. I'm trying to think on Williston, was that a Raymond James deal? I have to go back and look. And if we go and get this grant, if you will, just like your city goes into the world of HUD and look for various grants, and that's a specialty unto itself, then we will be able to take these credits and turn it into money. And by doing so, let's say we partnered up and wanted to buy an apartment building here in High Springs, and just traditionally say, okay, we know we got to go to the bank. They'll give us a 60 or 70 or maybe an 80% loan. We got to come up with 20 or 30% in cash. A traditional, typical deal. This is kind of reversed because we got low income that doesn't produce any income, any net income. It's designed not to. So we would say, okay, we got very little income out of this thing. We're going to need, instead of a 70% loan that we can't get because the income's not coming out of this property, maybe we could go out and get a 15 or 20% loan because we got this award of tax credits that we can turn into equity that will pay anywhere from 70, 80, 90, maybe 100% of all the development costs, including buying the land, in exchange for us reducing these rents and going into a land use agreement for 50 years that it will always be what it's intended to be, affordable housing. It's become a big issue of crisis in the last 2 to 3 years, and now it's hit the city of High Springs as well. Where does your worker, if you're recruiting as a business or as a government, Where are they going to live? Mobile homes that are 30 years old and falling apart. It's hard to recruit your workers and say, okay, we can pay you this amount every week, and they're looking and say, well, I can't afford to live here. So this kind of helps solve that problem by getting these rents, in my case, rents down, or if it's a home purchase, there are programs that when Dr. Hankins comes, he can talk a little bit about that, as well as Corey, to help that homeowner into a home that would not typically qualify for. In Gainesville today, a home can be $300,000, $350,000. If you're on a typical salary, how are you going to handle that? I mean, it's a dilemma. We all are facing that, or our kids are facing that. So the federal tax credit is a competitive process for developers like myself who compete by turning in grants. We'll just call it that to keep it so you guys can understand it. But it's basically an application to a state agency called Florida Housing Finance Corporation. Okay? And they have a website, and you should, definitely those who are interested, you should get on there and cruise around their website. You can always call me or email me, and if you get stuck or don't understand, and I'll gladly assist you, to try to get smart, if you will, on how the affordable housing programs work. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. When we have in our sources against our uses, we have a gap. We look for other ways of getting things funded. For instance, in this round, there have been communities, there have been counties who have said, we know that if we can make a large contribution to help assist you, that Florida Housing Finance Corporation will recognize that large assistance as a funding goal for these credits. And I won't get too deep in that, but I can certainly always discuss that, in continuing discussions. That's how it works, if I've explained myself in simple nutshell. Okay?
Steve, could you talk a little bit about, you mentioned south of 27 that there is an opportunity zone?
Okay. I took a look at your future land plan that's, that can be pulled. And I took a look at your present land plan. And Florida Housing and HUD have targeted areas throughout the United States where they would like to see affordable housing be developed. And these targeted areas consist of a qualified census tract, which you're not in one, frankly. They created a few years ago something called an opportunity zone, another designated area, which if on the south side of 27, not on the north side, you actually are in. And I'll leave you this, in fact, because I pulled this really for myself.
Everything south of First Avenue.
This is just a pretty purple picture. But
That's okay. It's a workshop. Yeah,
what that
it's a
picture
workshop.
shows
You're
you,
good.
if you
No
look
problem.
closely, everything to the south of 27 is in a designated area that we would need to focus on. Why? If it's in a qualified census tract, which you are not, or in this case an opportunity zone, if I make an application for $1 worth of tax credits, I get a basis boost. I get another 30 cents. So instead of getting $1, I get $1.30. It's critical because of the cost today. Construction costs have gone through the roof. We all know that. Land has not gotten any cheaper. Permitting costs and impact fees in a growing market have gotten expensive. So for any type of a rental community, we would need to focus on land south of 27 in your community. I, for one, would be interested in doing something that would be dynamic to the community, and that's not doing 3 units or 2 units. That's doing, say, 40 units, 40 residences, 60 residences. Arbors at Williston is 72 residences. And in order to do that, I see in your current zoning, it looks like your max zoning is 12 units to the acre. Okay? So that means we need to look at something conservatively, maybe 5 to 8 acres in a parcel of land to be able to create a very nice community with a community facility that would, for lack of a better word, it would be clubhouse, but it would really be a community facility where we can offer programs to both those living within the community and those living outside of the community. Social programs that would be of assist, whether it's to help them with employment or educational or how to budget and save your money so that you can ultimately maybe save enough money to be able to purchase a house. There's nothing more satisfying than if I get a call or find out from one of the property managers such and such is moving out because they qualified for a home. The circle's complete. That's what it's all about. So some work would have to be done on your future land plan to, number one, bring in probably some land that would be in that 5 to, say, 10 acre parcel size for someone like myself to come in and do something that would be dynamic. When Dr. Hankin talks, he's in it doing something else, a community land trust, which he will explain. Corey Harris understands this program very well. I don't know if he's going to speak, but I would recommend he might come up and say a few words with National Housing and Development Corporation. They do a really, really good job in new home buyer programs, et cetera, et cetera. And they're local Gainesville community business. I have my degree from UF. I was married at Blue Spring Campgrounds with my wife Elaine, the Barr family, if any of you knew them. Kim's still living out there in the house that Bud built with cypress logs he pulled out of the river, if you know where I'm talking about. So I did want to come to speak because I have deep roots here in High Springs. When we had no money and starting out, we wanted to go and travel and we'd come up to the Springs, throw the tent in the trunk, and our family was a lot raised right here in your backyard. You guys are blessed to live in such a beautiful area. Okay.
Steve, could I ask you a question?
Yes.
We're working on trying to do a community resource center. We actually do have a resource center, but the community center that you're describing, could that be encompassed with a nonprofit coming in there running something similar to the Swag Center that's down in Gainesville?
I certainly would say yes.
Okay.
There are nonprofits that specialize in many things. I'm a developer.
Right.
But there are nonprofit programs out there, and I'm going to point back at Corey because he has some knowledge, I do too, of those nonprofits that would be able to either provide or give you the understanding of how to put these programs together, invite them in to be able to help you put these programs together.
And you continue management of the properties when you complete them and get them rented?
We do.
You continue, your company maintains
that is correct.
Management?
Because, for instance, these credits are being sold off, and if one of our partners, well, SunTrust Bank is a partner of ours. You all know SunTrust. We've done a good bit with SunTrust. They're going to require that we manage it. We have an equity interest in it. Okay. So, there's a lot of hoops to jump through. It's government funded money, and you all know how that works. So the reporting is deep. Annual audits, the whole bit. So yeah, you're free to call me. She has my contact information, and I'm at the stage in my life. This is my 67th year that it's time to give back as much as we can. That's life. That's what the cycle of life is. It's your generation that's taken over, dear. That's a good thing.
Thank you so much for coming
Certainly.
out. Christina, did you want to have Corey come out?
Yeah, Corey, would you like to come up and talk?
I'm Corey Harris with Neighborhood Housing and Development Corporation. Thank you guys for allowing me to have this time to speak to you today. I didn't necessarily prepare anything, so if you need somebody to just give me a cue to tell me to stop talking, I will. Have the tendency to be a little bit long-winded, but I represent, again, Neighborhood Housing and Development Corporation. We're a local nonprofit organization that focuses on housing solutions for low and moderate income families. And again, we're a nonprofit, so a lot of our profits flow back into reinvestment into our community. So we run programs ranging from education and counseling to housing development activities. We have a rental portfolio. We also run the county's home repair program, the emergency home repair program, among a number of other programs. Mr. Lowich mentioned that we're National Housing and Development Corporation. We do have a national brand behind us, NeighborWorks America. It's Neighborhood Housing and Development Corporation, but we do have a national presence behind us. We're a NeighborWorks charter member. NeighborWorks has funded a number of social service organizations and development organizations throughout the country. There's 250 of us throughout the country. NeighborWorks has an appropriation, a federal appropriation each year. As a NeighborWorks organization, they provide us with technical assistance as well as funding to do development projects. We focus in the single-family housing space. Single-family, you guys oftentimes probably hear of single-family. That's just either a frame or brick constructed house or concrete block house, just one unit. We're looking to branch into multifamily. We're actually working on a project right now using LIHTC, low-income housing tax credits, to develop a 62-unit senior housing development over Northwest Gainesville, which abuts the senior center. We're keeping our fingers crossed because we've gotten some positive news moving forward, but again, we're not quite there yet as far as that development. Some of the other activities we're doing here locally, we just acquired 3 lots here locally. Our plan is to develop housing here. Not only do we develop housing, but we also want to train those individuals to make sure that these houses are sustainable. If you look at our numbers here locally, right now, the average of the median family home in Alachua County is probably roughly about $170,000. Median income is about $40,000. So if you take that number and you start looking at what's the affordability for those people, just doing simple math, $30,000 of gross income, okay, will allow you to afford without any debts about $100,000. And each $10,000 more than that provides another $50,000 in buying power. So $40,000 would provide somebody without any debts. Now, how many people in our community don't have any debts? Very little. All right. And so when you start looking at the median price house at $170,000, the median area family income is about $40,000 for all families. That means that the median family can't even afford a median price house in our communities. One of the biggest misconceptions, and again, I won't take too much of your time because I can start talking about affordable housing probably all day. But one of the misconceptions is oftentimes people say, well, there's houses on the market that someone can afford at $70,000 or $80,000 or $90,000. Believe it or not, most people wouldn't qualify for those houses because most of the loans that low-income buyers qualify for is FHA. FHA requires that the property is move-in ready. And properties at that lower end of the spectrum, oftentimes they're priced out because they're not move-in ready. So I'll start right there, and if you have any questions for me, feel free to do so.
I just want to say that we met with Stephanie C. Wright and Sean, I'm sorry, I don't remember his last name, and they have started clearing the lots, the 3 lots that are off Railroad Avenue. They brought us some photographs. You can show those, Linda. of the conceptual plans of the single-family homes that they intend to put on these lots, and they've already got a sign up out there. And Stephanie said they're already getting some phone calls, and we are very interested in helping to create the space for the education pieces. We have our old school center, we have our civic center. I connected her with the lady at the library today because our library is great about opening their space as well, so that people can start to do the things they need to do to get to a place where they could buy a home, like credit repair and all those pieces that your organization knows how to help people understand. So we're really appreciative of your outreach and your investment in our community, and I'm really excited about these houses that you're building.
Thank you. And one of the things that I would like to say, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry for not addressing you, Madam Mayor and the Commission. I should have addressed you guys properly before I stood up here. One of the things I do want to say is that it's so important that we educate families over, the process of home ownership. I want you guys to kind of reflect back on when you became a homeowner. Oftentimes, you didn't know where to start. Everybody around you was trying to make money off of you. Coming to a nonprofit organization that has really an objective motive to just say, hey, we want to prepare you to make the best decision for you. And that's one of the things that we do as a HUD-approved counseling agency is we just want to educate families, whether they buy a house or not. We just want there to be the education out there for them to make the best decision for them. And one of the other things I want to say is that, not only with a nonprofit like NHDC, and I'm not just touting NHDC, but not only do we provide housing, but we also create local jobs. One of the things that we act really as a facilitator of development. So we hire subs. We hire subs ranging from, your framers, your painters, your masonry workers. So not only do we provide housing for our local community, but we also bring jobs into the local community. So I'm proud to say that at least one of those projects will be done by a local developer from High Springs. Or at least a local builder from High Springs. I don't know whether that was shared with you guys or not.
Right, yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Gary, would you like to come?
Evening.
Hi, how are you tonight?
So I'm Gary Hankins. I'm the acting executive director of the Communities of Care Community Land Trust, and I've had the privilege of meeting with some of you and participating in the community workshop on visualizing the possible developments in the Douglas neighborhood. That was really an exciting experience for the board and myself. So what I want to tell you about the Land Trust is that the Land Trust begins and ends in the community. And what I mean by that is that we're very excited about the opportunity to work with you at the level of the grassroots. We would look forward to having opportunities to go into the neighborhood to meet the neighbors in the Douglas and other areas that are being considered for development and make the Land Trust as a tool available to them to visualize what it is they want their community to become. That's the way that a Land Trust works. A Land Trust is a tool that myself, my wife, and another friend started it. We now have a nine-member board. And we are the legal owners of the company, the nonprofit company. But we have created this tool to make it available to you and to your neighbors and to your community. And my job as the executive director is to provide you with an understanding of what this tool can do, what it cannot do, and to make it available to you to use to realize the dreams that you have for your community. So several things that the Community Land Trust provides that are different than other nonprofit developers or for-profit developers is that the Land Trust has a perpetual interest in the properties that it is involved with, which means that we're in it for the long haul. By the long haul, I mean multiple generations. Essentially, the Land Trust takes ownership of land and keeps the ownership of that land in perpetuity. So it is very concerned about the quality of construction and the quality of the work that is done, because ultimately we have to be able to be in a position to buy back that property if the person owning a house wishes to sell it. So we always maintain an option to buy that house back. So what that means is that we're looking toward putting on the ground a high quality product that can be maintained over the long haul. The second thing that a land trust provides is that it is a collaborator with all of the other developers. The land trust can hold deed to the land, but can work with Steve Lowitz or Corey or any other developer in realizing the development of that property. And then the last thing I would mention, that I'll be open to any questions you may have, is that a land trust enables a community to preserve the public subsidy that is invested in that property for the current generation and for future generations. And the way we do that is through the 99-year lease that we negotiate with the home buyer, which defines how that property is going to be sold and what the rules are for the sale of that property in the future if the homeowner wishes to sell, and what happens to the subsidy. And what happens to the subsidy is it is retained by the land trust, so that it can be passed on to the next home buyer. And what that means is you're not constantly having to reinvest public dollars into that property each time the property is sold, subsidizing a new homeowner. So those are the major features that I would emphasize right off the bat. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you.
All right, I guess I did my job.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for coming out. Thank you.
We just want to thank everyone. We're very excited that we have all of these different tools to choose from. I mean, all of them are very greatly needed. And thank everyone for coming out tonight. I'm sure we'll have a series more of workshops and things in the future as we move forward. Do you have anything?
Nope. I really appreciate the time and the energy that all of you are putting into our community and in helping us, because we have decisions to make as a board, and we appreciate the education and the options that you're bringing to our table so we can make good decisions for the people that we serve. So I personally am very grateful for all the time that you're giving us. Anybody else have comment?
One concern. I keep hearing you, Steve and other young man like that. One of my biggest concerns is, I know you say you hold the land for 99 years. Am I correct? The lease? I guess all y'all can answer this question. One of my big concerns is, Corey, if I remember, you remember Kennedy Homes? What happened to that? We don't want that. We don't want that. Because after 10 or 20 years, then it just come another little place where another 10 years going to tear it down. We want longevity.
Right.
That's concerned. You know, making sure that the people taking care of their property, making sure they maintaining the property. That's one of my key concerns.
Right. And I totally agree. And that's why I emphasize that the community land trust begins and ends in the community. We're in there for the long haul. So we develop a close working relationship with that homeowner. We don't put people into homes they can't afford, and which includes affording the maintenance of that home, which is the point that you're making. And that the quality, but we want to put homes on the ground that anyone in this room would be proud to live in. Not only today, but in the future. So we're talking about a high quality product. And if you look at the work of land trusts around the state, and we'd be happy to provide examples of that to you, the homes that CLTs develop are amazing in terms of their quality for the amount that people have to pay for them. And the way that we provide a property at below market rate is that the cost of the land is taken out of the equation. And also we can be a vehicle through which assistance, financial assistance, such as SHIP funds and so on, can flow to the home buyer to help with the down payment. So those are the ways that we provide houses at below market rate. But I totally agree.
Yes.
I don't want to be involved in anything that's junky and not well maintained.
You kept using that word quality. That's what we're looking for. Quality.
Absolutely.
Because it do makes a difference. It's just a quality home. People appreciate it more, and they'll take care of it.
We will work to earn your trust.
All right. Okay. It's kind of hard now.
All right.
Anybody else have any other comments? Okay, then I will close the workshop portion of this meeting, and our regular CRA board meeting starts at 6:45. So do you want to start that now or just take a break for a few minutes? Okay, we'll take a break until 6:45. 5:45. 5:45. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Good.
I'm sorry. CRA board meeting. Come back to your seats, please. Thank you so much for coming to talk with us. Okay, we will start with the invocation. Jessica, would you want to do the invocation for us tonight for the meeting? Would you mind? I'm sorry, I should have asked you earlier. Put her on the spot.
Jessica says she can always say a prayer.
Okay, I'm sorry, I put you on the spot. I should have asked you earlier. Okay.
I'm always ready.
Always ready for that.
Lord, we thank and praise you for this day because truly this is the day that the Lord has made and we're rejoicing and we're glad in it.
Yes.
Father God, we thank you for allowing us to assemble ourselves together here in this city commission chambers in order to conduct the business at hand. We ask that you lead us and guide us and direct us so that we can make the best possible decisions for those who will be impacted and affected by it. We ask that this be a nice, cordial, peaceful meeting. We ask that you continue to bless us, bless our first responders, bless our city representatives. In Christ's name we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
And if you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. Jenny, can you do roll call, please?
Chair Lavin,
Here.
Vice Chair James,
Here.
Member Jamison,
Here.
Member Jones,
Here.
Member Williams,
Here.
Okay, the next item is approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting.
We do have some changes. We need to add approval of the design of community showcase banners. That's that,
The single one.
yes, this one. And then strike number 3 under business items. We're going to cover that under discussion. And then I just want to note that number 5 has the resolution number. It should be 2019.
Okay, any other amendments to the agenda? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I will make a motion that the agenda be approved with the necessary corrections listed.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Approval of the November 8th, 2018 minutes. Do it next time? Okay, we'll push that to our next meeting. Thank you. All right, so business items. Consider update to River Run Olive Oil Company Wayfinding Grant Award amount. I'm going to turn this over to Christina.
Yeah, this is the one we heard last time. This is that wayfinding signage package that they have on the side of the building. It's now been completed. There was a slight change in the amount that they had to pay, which is the portion that we would have to approve would be $104.50. The reason why this is coming back, just because in our policies it says that, if there's any change in the award amount, it has to come back.
Any discussion? Questions? Motions?
Is there any, let me ask a question, is there any, and I see $104, I get this, is if something were to come back, is it always then going to be at our discretion? I mean, if they come back and it's a large amount for some reason, do we have any obligation to say yes, we're going to take it, or we say no? And you know what I'm saying? I'm asking a hypothetical.
Yeah.
But is there any?
Yeah, that's totally your discretion. If you would want to change the policy, we could. Like, if you wanted to change it to any change under 500, which would authorize me to approve it. I mean, we can do a number of things, but as far as we're not bound to. Once the approval's made, it's set at that value. If for some reason it would dramatically change, I mean, the award is already there for that initial amount.
So then the additional comes in, that's a completely separate issue. So, I mean, and there again, hypothetical, don't get me wrong. we can sit there and say, we're not gonna do this.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they would have to front the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'm not recommending, I could foresee somebody coming back maybe at some point in time and something unforeseen had to be added in, which really raised the price, and we're caught off guard, type of thing.
Yeah.
That would still come back to us to do it or not.
Yeah. And of course, there's always that threshold limit. I think the maximum is 5,000. So
Right.
yeah, there's always that as
Okay.
well.
Okay.
And that's a good question, because when you get into old buildings, you often get unexpected
you don't know.
expenses. That's a very common
Yeah.
thing to happen.
You know, the unforeseen. I don't.
I think the sign looks real good. Have you seen it down there at the end
Yeah.
of the building? It looks very
It's
nice
really,
and
really
very
nice.
professional. Helps to kind of let people know what's down that row.
Obviously, the money's there, no issue. You reckon? I'll make a motion to go ahead and pay it.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries to approve the additional amount for the grant. All right, next item is consider CRA sign proposal.
Yeah, within your packet, there are some sketches. These were created by local artist Larry Banky. The color one being kind of his suggestion, but there are some other ones that we could choose from if you all would see anything that you would think would suit the needs better. That area on the front of the depot that looked like a cargo door, that's the area where this will be hung. So it's very important at this, as far as identification and, to help folks direct in the right direction when they're coming to our building. But as far as the cost is relatively minimal. He can't give an exact figure right now because the vinyl lettering cost, depending on which design we choose, will vary. But the expectation is for it to be under $250. So it's really not expensive in terms of cost. So
Is it a 4x8 sheet of plywood?
I think so.
Is that what we're looking at? Is there a possibility to have him also do a sign down at the end of the street, like pointing towards you, a small sign that would match this?
we certainly could. We just have to. I would just want to review about directional, but we should because it's a directional sign. But I can ask him about that. And as far as the size of the sign, it should be approximately 3 by 4. So
This one
Yeah.
should be 3 feet by 4 feet. Okay. I like the colors. I think it'll stand out and draw people's attention.
And this is a sketch. The vinyl lettering, will of course be.
I like the one that's number 4 on the sketches, personally. Does this have to go before the planning board for the, my brain has totally lost what,
It would just be a regular sign permit. So.
certificate of appropriateness, it wouldn't have to do that? Okay, okay.
Are we approving one of these tonight?
If you want, we can bring it back to the next meeting if y'all want to.
No, I don't think so. I was just asking. I wasn't
Yeah, I
saying-
mean, we can, yeah, if you have any preference of design, we can approve just the sign in general, and then if you all want to, maybe condition it with your selection, or,
Do you have a preference?
actually the one that he suggested is great. I kind of like the arrow, and, it's very graphic, and I think we kind of need that little bit of extra pop, but, I also, number 4 is great also.
That arrow is pointing to the door.
Yeah. It'll, yeah. point
Because
to
this
red
will
for-
be on the bay door, I think, pointing
an
to your
arrow is
door.
very good.
Yeah.
Is there any way to add in something about the planning and development department being at the other door on this signage?
Well, they have a sign that's on their end,
Okay.
and we could look at doing a separate sign if they would want to, but that, again, that wouldn't be us,
Okay.
but
Okay. I like it. I think it looks great. I think it's characteristic of the community. Larry's done a lot of artwork around here, so everybody kind of knows him. It's a local person that would be doing it and receiving benefit, which is a win-win for everybody. Larry did a sign for my business when I had a building on 441. It held up really well for many years. You know, he did a good job. It was really well done. So I personally think, you know, that's a great choice. So do you want to move forward? Do we need to do a motion for you to move forward to go ahead and get a final price and then we can approve it, or just give you a threshold price? What do you want us to do?
yeah, I mean, this is more just, you know, wanting to share this,
Okay.
you know, and for us to decide on it as a group. But as far as, you know, the cost is not going to exceed $500, so
Okay.
we should be fine that
Okay.
way.
It looks great. I think it'll draw everybody's eye, and, you know, maybe just a small sign at the end of the street so people, because nobody knows the name of that road at all.
No, you're right.
Nobody knows. Somebody asked me where the bathrooms were, and I had to drive around by there and get the name of the road and take a picture of it.
Okay.
So yeah. So
Give landmarks.
give
Yeah.
landmarks, the bike shop. The
Yeah.
bike shop.
Old
Yep.
High Spring Harrow.
Yep. So-
Now, see, not everybody would know that.
Yeah.
Right, I know that, but not everybody would.
Right, we
So
moved to just after, or
Right.
just before it went.
right. So
I got
Okay.
the call of it. Where is it?
hmm?
I said, I got the call of it. They're trying to find it.
So okay. So are we all in in agreement that she should move
Somebody have a
forward?
question? No.
Anybody in the public? Yes. Come on.
Yvonne Andrews. I was asking Jenny, just because it's part of the city, it doesn't have to go before the Planning Board Historical Development for approval of the sign? It doesn't have to go before?
No, when we bring those small items, that should come before planning and zoning. Planning and zoning agreement is connected to do site plan reviews.
I say it's
Zoning.
historical development.
Now,
Because
that's when
of-
they change the concept of the building, or maybe want to paint it orange instead of what the normal colors are. As long as we keep it within the scope and the historical nature of the downtown.
So signage doesn't have to go before.
Just
No, not unless it's so much different. We really go by the ordinance.
Okay. All right, just want to be clear.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any more discussion from the board? No? Okay.
Pretty
I think
much
we in
agree.
agreement.
I think we're in
Sound like we in
agreement.
agreement.
Right. Thank you. It looks great. Okay, next item is establish next meeting date and time.
We have the RFQ process coming up, the deadline being Monday, interviews being scheduled for Wednesday. So the hope is to have, make that agenda item to have at the next CRA meeting and also at the commission as well. So we were looking at the 24th. I personally, I have, and I can move this, but you know, the regional planning council is that same night. If we could do it early enough, I could do both, but I didn't know how everyone's schedule, if that would be the day or if you would prefer a different day.
I'm in a workshop up in Lake City till 3 that day, so we have a regular commission meeting at 6:30 that night, correct? So what time would you think, are you thinking we would need to meet?
5:30 would work. As long, yeah.
Does that work for the rest of the board?
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to do something on the 24th at 5:30?
Yeah.
Okay. So do we need to make a motion or just?
It never hurts to make a motion.
Okay,
Purposes
let's
of
make a
clarity on
motion.
the record.
Just so we do our job. Anybody want to make a
All right, I'll
motion?
make a motion that our next CRA meeting be held on January 24th at 5 p.m. 5:30?
5:30.
5:30 p.m.
Second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Then we have the next item is to amend the CRA plan with Resolution 2019-A regarding the one-year extension approved by the Alachua County Board of County Commissioners as Appendix D. So, do you want to read?
Madam Chair, I'd be happy to. Resolution number 2018-A. 2019-A. A resolution of the CRA Board of the City of High Springs amending the Community Redevelopment Plan to incorporate Alachua County Board of County Commissioners extension of the plan term. Appropriate motion is to move to pass the resolution by reading of title only.
Any questions? Christina attached the Board of County Commissioners meeting minutes when we went for that extension back in October, and so this is in relationship to that. One of the things that we had to do was to reduce those administrative and operating costs to lower than 50% of our annual revenues. And then we would be on the consent agenda for the next renewal. Although I believe that Christina wants to take it to them before that and show them that we're currently doing this and we've gotten where we want to be, so there won't be any problem next October. So we don't have to jump through the hoops again. Is that?
Yeah. Ideally, when we go, I'd like for us to do the end of the year report. At least, of course we have to do it before March 31st, but I'd like to shoot for closer to the end of February. But with that, I think it would show a lot of motivation, and that way also too with this RFQ and the projects we have on the horizon, it really has a lot for us to showcase and to show not only that we've done what they've asked of us, but showing them, a glimpse of what the future holds. And I think that puts us in a good place when it comes time to ask, for, when we're looking at, the future and other things that we want to do. And so, yeah. But as far as this, just a bit of housekeeping, just,
Do you have any other questions for her? Comment?
When you look at the whereas thing in here, I'm parsing on it, and it talks about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The sixth one down. The CRA would need to meet, including reducing operations and minute across the 50%. Do we need to say 50% of what? Because 50% could, I'm parsing, but do we need to say 50% of the total operating budget, 50% of?
Maybe of the budget, yeah.
Further down in section 1, it says.
I know that's being sort of picky, but
Not at all, and that's fine. The motion can be
right
to pass the resolution subject to qualifying that the words subject to the overall budget are included in there.
It's revenues, though. It's annual revenues is the figure that we have to work with, not budget, right? Isn't that correct?
Well, budget would be okay because once, now that we're moving forward and we have these tied to projects, that is not going to come up again.
Okay.
It's just that, that initial attaching it.
So what are we going to put in there?
Down further, it says revenues in section 1.
Either is fine.
So
it's
revenue
fine.
up there.
I think revenues is fine. I think leaving, making it consistent there on the whereas versus section 1. It should say revenues.
Okay. I'm good.
Thank you for catching that, Commissioner Jameson.
I'm done.
Any questions from the public on this resolution? Comments?
I'll make the motion to pass resolution 219-A with the following revision applied.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, do we need to, I'm sorry, we need to do roll call.
Chair Lavin?
Yes.
Vice Chair James?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. And then item 6 that was added on is approval of banners. Christina?
Yeah, so this is the banners that are downtown that are sponsored by the individual businesses, not the ones we've just replaced, but the ones that have the area for each individual business to sponsor. Every year, the renewals, if we were to keep the same banners, they would take them down and put new businesses, unless that business was also sponsoring once again for the year. So this is no cost to us. This is just the replacement banner. This company works directly with the individual businesses. He guarantees at least 25, anyway, and it's community showcase banners. And so he's come up with 3 new designs for us to look at. So again, this isn't about price or about cost, because that's all handled between the business and this company, but rather just the look of the banners for downtown.
And he has some sort of contract to have those slots for X amount of years or something? Wasn't there something in that original that his company retains those particular spots or X amount of banners until whenever, right? So he has the right to put them there until that time expires. By redoing the banners, it doesn't extend that time, does it?
No. Okay. This is just something that they do on an annual basis whenever they could, if we wanted to stay with the same design, but they like to do this because, over time the banners fade and deteriorate, and they do this just to keep the look fresh.
I like the one in the middle. That springs forward or welcomes you.
I like number 3. Yeah. Right, it just jumps right out at you. Yeah, exactly. No, with the river on. Exactly.
Yep.
Okay.
So do we need to make a motion? Go ahead and make a motion.
You want me to make a motion?
Sure.
All right. I make a motion. Question? No. Oh. I make a motion that we adopt banner 3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're on to discussion items, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so once again, the RFQ deadline coming up next Monday. Interviews, we do, we're this time looking at a selection committee, and that's largely going to be of staff. And anyway, so as far as the things, we've had a number of firms come in, a lot of interest in this, a lot of excitement, and just in general looking at, landscaping and lighting improvements throughout downtown. I've heard some of them talk about, the possibility of doing raised planters and some really exciting things like, to encompass that space around the Market Pavilion area. So a lot of exciting things on the horizon. As far as the tax increment finding, or so the TIF report was so the TIF report was attached because of the interlocal agreement. That was just something that in that original interlocal agreement that was stipulated that we had to show. The lots have all been looked at and verified. Everything is fine there. But as far as like the RFQ, so that will come back, I guess, again, on the 24th, and then at that time, moving forward. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. That's why I'm thinking it's like my report, so I didn't want to go too far, but that's moving very well. Everything's moving along very nicely, and we've had a lot of interest.
How many people have you interviewed with?
2 firms have come, one from St. Augustine, and another firm from Orlando, which they would have known soon. They didn't find out when the ad went out. So, but yeah, there was a lot. Even had a call from someone in Illinois. When they put them in the newspaper, somehow it went into some kind of a database. So we had some calls that were very surprising to me, but there was a good bit of interest.
Okay. Thank you. And then the general ledger report, do you want to go over that?
Yeah, and that's been attached. Again, that's just, a good practice for us to get into. As you can see, not much has been spent at this time. And once we get into these projects, that's when we're going to see some movement. But anyway, so that was just attached for your review.
Now that doesn't reflect any budget adjustments that we need to make to accommodate the Board of County Commissioners?
Not yet.
Okay.
Jennifer and I are going to be working in the next, for the next meeting and then maybe the meeting thereafter or whatever. But it's going to be happening pretty soon. So
Okay.
we're ready to get back.
Okay, anything else? You have anything else? Okay. Chair report, we met with NHDC yesterday, and it's really not in the CRA district, but talked about these homes, and they are very excited to be here. The other thing that happened this week was the Rails to Trails was discussed at the Board of County Commissioners meeting on Tuesday, and Mayor Jones and Mr. Booth and Ms. Stoll and Christina and myself and Yellow Bellied Sliders and former Mayor Weller and Tom were there. So there was a good show from High Springs, and as a consequence, the Board of County Commissioners have instructed their staff to reach out to us to see why we're so for that project and how it's going to affect our redevelopment plans. So a meeting's been set up for January 22nd, and they're coming out here. Chris Dawson from their planning department, along with possibly DEP from theirs, to talk to us, personally, to find out why this is such an important piece of our redevelopment. And so they, about the Pocket Park and the Market Pavilion, we need to really make sure that their staff understands that and can take that back to them. And then they will be discussing that again on February 12th at the County Board of Commissioners meeting. And hopefully there is an extension in place to the contract right now, and there's some renegotiation happening with CSX because of mitigation issues and appraisal issues. And hopefully then everybody can get on the same page by February 12th, and this project can move forward and come to some sort of fruition soon. Is that what you got out of that, Linda? You were there.
Yes. The only thing that concerned me was Mr. Byerly made a comment that that if we couldn't come up with a consensus on this, that he wanted to put the money somewhere closer to town.
Closer to town, yes.
And that kind of just went right through me, and
yeah.
I'm not sure where that came from. I mean,
that is a comment that's a comment that would be anticipated from him.
Yeah, right, but still, it surprised me that he made that comment during the meeting. That was so. Other than that, everybody seemed more positive. Even he was at times positive, but it just really surprised me when he said closer to town. I didn't want to exacerbate the situation by saying, which town are you in?
It's in the middle of our town. It's really important to our town. We have a town too. And I felt the same way, to be honest with you, but I was like...
I know, I just, not going to go there.
So, okay, so that was all I had. Executive Director report.
Yeah, it's largely the same. Again, just about the NHDC meeting, and then also that sheet that was sent out with some additional housing info. Maybe in time, some of these additional resources, now that we have these great partners, we can continue to pass along more that can be distributed throughout the community. As far as the Market Pavilion, of course, we're going to be meeting here on the 22nd, it looks like, to further discuss all these things related to the Rails to Trails, which of course, is so important to our Market Pavilion and, the projects we've got in the pipeline too. So a lot of exciting things.
How do we get an extension on that? And maybe Jennifer needs to be part of that discussion, because it looks like, we're going to be at that deadline. I'm not sure what that deadline is. How do we start that process of doing that extension so we can keep that grant alive?
Well, I've already discussed your background. Her email said that she's on furlough.
Because USDA is shut down. Yeah, USDA is shut down.
That grant out May of 2019.
So hopefully when they come back from furlough, we'll reach out to them again, and because we'll have to stay on top of that so we don't lose that funding opportunity. So hope maybe by the time the county meets again, maybe they'll be off furlough. Okay. Anything else? Anything from any of the board members? No? Okay. I guess we can go ahead and adjourn this meeting until the 6:30 commission meeting, right? Thank you.